If you've been watching my movie reviews on this channel, you know I give each movie a clap rating from 1 to 5 claps. I'm usually pretty positive because I love movies. That's why I do this. But this weekend, I have to give my first single clap rating. Will it be to one of the 2 sex comedies I'll be reviewing? One of the 3 horror/thriller movies? Or will it be for the Moana remake that nobody asked for? Stay tuned to find out, as I'll be bringing you honest, spoiler-free reviews of 6 new theatrical releases, plus a retro reel review of a wonderful but underseen 2015 movie that relates to a theme established by 2 of those 6 films. All of that's coming your way this weekend at the movies. Did we really need a live-action remake of Moana just 10 years after the original animated version and just 2 years after the animated sequel? I'm about to address that issue, but first, let's talk about the movie in purely objective terms. Moana is a Polynesian musical adventure, the live-action adaptation of the 2016 Disney animation film of the same name. Dwayne Johnson reprises his role as Maui, while Catherine Catherine Lagaia, I had it right. While Catherine Lagaiana, Dwayne Johnson reprises his role as Maui, and Catherine Lagaia. While Catherine Lagaia, that was right. While Catherine Lagaia in her film debut takes over as Moana. The story here is identical to the original animated version. Moana is the daughter of their island's chief and heir to his throne. He wants her to always remain safely on the island, or at least on their side of the reef. Moana feels called to the ocean. Her grandmother encourages her to be who she is and follow her passion. When their island suddenly seems to be dying, from blackened coconuts to a lack of fish, Moana sets out on a raft with only her dumb but cute chicken friend as company as she searches for the legendary demigod Maui, who, as the story goes, stole a life-giving gemstone called the Heart of Te Fiti from that mother island goddess. Moana must battle her own self-doubt and Maui's massive ego, arrogance, and selfishness to get him to help her return the Heart of Te Fiti so that life, love, joy, and peace may return to her island and, by extension, the entire ocean. The live-action Moana is not a bad movie, but it is a cash grab. We get some new music from famed songwriter Lin-Manuel Miranda, but most of the songs are the same, and the script is nearly identical to the original. It kind of has to be, given the expectations of Moana fans. But if you can't significantly add to or improve upon the original with the remake, why have the remake in the first place? And with the remake's heavy reliance on CGI for its visuals, I have to ask if fans of the franchise really gain anything with this version. On one hand, the live action does make the story feel more real. But on the other hand, animation has a charm and creative flexibility that live action simply cannot match. Besides, the original animated version employed the best voice actors available to bring these wonderfully animated characters to life. In this version, we get actors, speaking of the Islanders here, who are mainly just serviceable in their roles. I mean, how could it be any other way? You're asking a large cast to act, sing, and dance to be the entertainment industry's version of the triple threat, while few, if any of them, have had significant experience with these skills on this level. The main actors are mostly very good, but they appear, or at least feel, constrained by the inherent limitations of live action. I can't give this Moana any more than 2 claps out of 5. Skip it. unless you've never seen a Moana movie. But even in that case, I would recommend you finding and watching the original 2016 animated version. It does the story more justice and is simply more fun. But what do you think? Tell me in the comments. As we move on, you may notice a certain progression in the way I've arranged these 6 reviews. It isn't random. Each movie shares some element with the one that follows it, creating a chain that runs through all 6 reviews and into the Retro Reel review. See if you can spot the flow as we go. For now, on to my second new review this weekend at the movies. The Invite is a comedy directed by Olivia Wilde. It's an English language remake of the 2020 Spanish film The People Upstairs. The film stars Wilde and Seth Rogen as a couple in a troubled marriage. They fight. A lot. He is a frustrated former musician who now settles for teaching music to kids who don't care. She is a homemaker and mother, even though we never see their child, who wants more out of life and is wondering what happened to the charming, talented man she fell in love with. In spite of their arguments, she invites their enigmatic upstairs neighbors, played by Penelope Cruz and Edward Norton, down for wine and cheese. Then the guests issue an invitation of their own, as the trailer puts it, quote, to join us. As we see the couples interact with each other and with their partners, alternately laughing, discussing, arguing, embarrassing each other, making discoveries, some very interesting revelations come to light. And we learn that this movie is about a lot more than its sexy premise. The Invite is very funny and very insightful. The 4 lead actors have terrific chemistry and the conversation flows naturally. The awkward moments, awkward pauses, overlapping lines of dialogue, and changes in mood all feel real. The moment of truth, when the titillating titular invite is issued and the conversation that follows, is entertaining and enlightening, but almost feels incidental in light of the deeper themes that this movie explores. Said invitation is simply the vehicle that gets us there. And with these 4 actors being the only 4 in the movie and interacting on a single set, this film feels like a play. That gives it an intimacy which allows for terrific character development and a clear focus on the movie's themes. Now, given some of those themes, this film may not be for everyone, but married couples will find the relationships ring true, at least on some level. You see, it's not necessary for you to accept or agree with the lifestyle of either of the couples in this movie for you to enjoy it and get something out of it. A movie fan that is willing to meet this movie on its own terms and simply go along for the ride that this fictional story takes them on will likely be entertained. I'm happy to give The Invite a strong 4 claps out of 5. See it, enjoy it, think about it, discuss it. Before we talk about our next movie, here's my first joint conversation about one of the current week's new movies with a guy who can give us some special personal insights into The Invite. Well, we have a special feature for you this weekend at the movies. My buddy John Herrick is going to do a guest commentary on The Invite. How you doing, John?
Good, sir. How are you?
I'm good. Sir, what is this sir stuff? John has some particular insights on the movie The Invite.
The Invite, in my opinion, was less about what you might have thought it was about in the beginning of the movie, and it's more about conflict. As far as a movie with a lot of dialogue goes, it was a decent movie, and it definitely had a message.
I'd like to get into whatever you're comfortable sharing about your understanding of this movie. Um, as somebody who participates in this type of lifestyle,
I don't think it was very realistic. That kind
in
of
what way?
Well, this was an experienced couple in the lifestyle who is
Hmm.
talking to a couple who's clearly they don't even know what it is.
Hmm.
So to begin talking to them that way and then watching the way the couple interacts, A couple with experience in a lifestyle would never, ever, ever suggest what Penelope Cruz and Ed Norton suggested of this couple.
Mhm.
Obviously, if a couple's fighting about a shirt that they're wearing or, the wallpaper, it's and they're doing it right in front of other people, it's not time to think that they've got the communication skills to be able to handle that sort of a relationship.
What did you think of the larger meaning of the movie as a married man yourself?
The larger meaning of the movie, that's a good question. I think that the larger meaning of the movie, of course, was that about growth, development, conflict,
Mhm.
relationships.
Yeah. You're a theater guy too. And one thing I mentioned in my review is with only four characters and only one set, it really felt like a play.
A little bit, yes.
Mhm.
Actually, quite a bit.
I think they did it that way to make it more intimate. Uh, no pun intended. I think one of the strengths of this movie is that it generates thought and discussion. Okay, whether it's
For sure.
about marriage in general, whether it's about the lifestyle discussed in the movie, um, whether it's about relationships in the broader sense, I think the script was really smart and the actors were very strong in setting it up and basically launching possible conversations between real couples who see the movie. Is that how you feel?
Sure, I'd agree with that assessment.
Before I tell you what I gave this one, how many claps would you give it, 1 to 5?
I would give it three.
Three? Okay. Well,
Three.
we're pretty close. I gave it four. But yeah, three and four, that's right next to each other. So we just differed a little bit in degree. I know you're a big superhero movie guy. So I'd like to have you back sometime to talk about some new superhero movie that comes out.
I would love
So,
to come do a superhero movie.
well, okay. Well, we'll have to talk about getting together and doing a guest commentary on that. But for now, John, I want to thank you very much for being here and for sharing your thoughts with us.
Thank you, Dave. Have a good day.
Thanks, John. Yeah, you
Bye.
too. That was pretty short, but John and I had a very good conversation about the invite. And if you'd like to see more, I'll be posting another video in a day or so with a longer version. Gail Daughtry and the Celebrity Sex Pass is a sex comedy. When Gail's fiance uses their celebrity pass agreement and has sex with his celebrity, she decides to get out of town for the weekend. She goes to Hollywood with a friend attending a hairdresser's convention. While in Hollywood, she decides to get even with her fiance by pursuing her own celebrity sex encounter with actor John Hamm playing himself. Zoe Deutsch plays Gail, who along the way gets help from a recently fired talent agency employee, a struggling paparazzo, and a former John Hamm co star, John Slattery, playing himself. Matters get even more complicated when an accidentally switched bag at an airport means that Gail is being pursued by some bumbling henchmen who work for a pretty ridiculous crime boss. And besides a few actors playing themselves, there are also some fun, short celebrity cameos, which I won't spoil here. Gail Daughtry and the Celebrity Sex Pass is fun, funny, and very silly. Stylistically silly. It will remind movie fans of the Dumb and Dumber movies. That kind of humor, but with a female protagonist. The plot points are intentionally ridiculous, the characters impossibly positive and humorously clueless. This is a movie which doesn't take itself too seriously, instead, proudly giving us an incredible view of reality, reveling in its impossible scenarios and mixing real people, well, heightened versions of real people with unreal but very entertaining characters, relying on the considerable charm of its actors and the characters they create to sell the story. And it works, mostly. Sometimes the movie feels like it's trying a bit too hard, and some of the setups are more awkward than funny, but there's still a lot here to enjoy. I give Gail Daughtry 3 claps out of 5. I say wait and stream it.
I'm going to go now.
Good night.
Good night. Wish me luck.
Yeah, good luck. Love you more.
Love you more.
Night Nurse is an erotic thriller in which a series of perverse scam calls unsettles an idyllic retirement community, leading a starry-eyed nurse to become entangled with her mysterious patient. When this nurse gets assigned to this notoriously difficult patient, she soon finds out why he has such a reputation. Instead of the man he appears to be, an old guy fighting the early stages of dementia, she finds out that he's an old guy still very much in charge of his faculties. He forces his nurses to help him scam his fellow seniors while he flirts with them and hosts drug and alcohol-fueled parties, which makes him appear more like a cult leader than an elderly man needing care 24/7. Then things get really crazy. Night Nurse is in desperate need of medical attention. Not only is its plot highly improbable, but the behavior of its characters makes no sense. The actions of these nurses, as in every nurse in sight, is against any semblance of good judgment or even logical self-interest, and there is no real explanation as to how all these nurses fell under this guy's spell. Then the plot reaches even more disturbing levels, finishing on a very upsetting note that feels less like an ending than an abandonment of a completely ridiculous story, without anything approaching a moral lesson, cautionary tale, or legitimate insight into human behavior anywhere in sight. The performances are likewise shaky, but that may not be entirely the fault of the actors, since they are laboring under a script that is just plain bad. Night Nurse gets the honor, or I should say dubious distinction, of earning my first single clap rating. Skip it, hard pass. The Isolate Thief is a Western thriller that takes place during a bitter cold winter late in the Civil War. The movie follows Adeline, Mackenzie Foy, veteran of the Twilight and Conjuring movies, sole proprietor of an isolated army outpost. One day she sees a mysterious old man, an unrecognizable Joe Pantoliano, bury something in the woods near her outpost. She digs it up and discovers a satchel filled with little bags of gold. But before she can make off with the loot, a vicious gang of outlaws led by Fiddler John, Sean Bean, shows up looking for the old man and his gold. Unable to determine the location of the gold from the man, they stay at the outpost and search for it themselves, unaware, at least for the time being, that Adeline has hidden it. Another young woman, traveling with the gang for their recreation, decides to try to help Adeline out of her precarious position. The Isolate Thief works on all levels, as a thriller, a period drama, a character study, and an actor's showcase. Let's take that last point first. Foy, Bean, and Pantoliano all work against type with impressive skill, and the rest of the cast is very strong as well. Not only do they all disappear into their roles, but they create interesting, multi-layered characters that I wanted to follow. Not because any of them are impressive examples of morality, none are, but because I was interested in what each of them would do next and how it would end for all of them. It's the same way I felt watching Quentin Tarantino's excellent late 1800s set Western The Hateful Eight in 2015. This movie feels like a smaller, more claustrophobic version of that film. In addition to interesting, well-played characters, this movie is also both dramatic, as we watch these characters interact with each other and slowly reveal things that they've been hiding, and tense, as we watch and wait to see who, if any of these characters, will survive all this. The Isolate Thief earns 4 claps out of 5. See it in a theater if you can. Evil Dead Burn is a supernatural horror film co-produced by series creator Sam Raimi. It's a sequel to Evil Dead 2013 and Evil Dead Rise 2023. After the loss of her husband, a young woman seeks solace with her in-laws, but This family relationship is far from idyllic, and things go quickly from bad to worse in a way that's classic Evil Dead. The dead man's parents never really cared for the wife, and now they blame her for his death. Still, the dead man's brother gets her to come and stay with the family, at least temporarily. If that family dynamic weren't problematic enough, things get much worse when they start killing each other. You see, the family's long-deceased patriarch had found and hidden an object that robs the dead of their power. They want it so they can destroy it, and they don't care who they have to kill to find it. In fact, they seem to actually enjoy the whole killing thing. The gorier the better. And right there is where Evil Dead Burn loses me. A classic good versus evil setup quickly becomes a slaughter fest with over-the-top amounts of blood and violence and gore. Slasher flicks usually have a more solid story, characters to root for, and breaks in the violence. If that were a scorecard, this movie is 0 for 3. And in my book, that's 3 strikes, you're out. But wait, there's more. Or should I say less? Besides not sparing the relatively innocent, this movie doesn't even spare old people or children. And why did that widow go and live with her in-laws in such an awkward and uncomfortable situation? Because the script says so? Not a good enough reason for me. Besides the problem of me not having anyone to root for in this movie, the mind-numbing violence and gore had me checking out mentally and emotionally. I did not care about any of these characters or how this movie's thin premise resolved. The only thing I cared about in the end was how many more minutes, which felt like hours, that I was going to have to endure this literal and metaphorical mess. Evil Dead Burn is lucky to get 1 clap out of 5 from me. I say skip it entirely. Unless you're a really big fan of the franchise, in which case you might like it, although I would have a hard time understanding how or why. But if you did like this movie, please explain your point of view in the comments. I'd really like to understand. I really would. Now, if you're wondering what I was talking about earlier when I said the order of these 6 reviews wasn't random, here's what I meant. I started with Moana, a family comedy. Next was a family-related sex comedy. Then, a sex comedy featuring a single female character. Then, a sex thriller featuring a single female character. Then, a Civil War thriller featuring a single female character, followed by a horror thriller centered around a single female protagonist. So, did you notice the progression? Yeah, I know, I spend way too much time thinking about things like the order of my movie reviews, but I amused myself a little by putting them in that order and then noticing the progression. Hopefully you liked it too. Either way, putting aside fun but inconsequential ordering of movie reviews, plus the sadness of giving my first 2 single clap reviews, let's end on a positive note with a retro reel review of a wonderful but little seen 2015 sex comedy. We've already had a couple sex comedies in this weekend's video. Well, here's one that's even better than those. 5 to 7 is a romantic dramedy about mutual marital infidelity. A French diplomat and his wife, a former model who live in New York City, have an agreement that each of them can see someone outside the marriage as long as they're discreet, and these rendezvous only happen between 5 and 7 p.m. on weekdays. Anton Yelchin, Chekhov in the 2009 Star Trek reboot, plays Brian Bloom, an aspiring writer in his mid-20s who meets the diplomat's wife, Ariel, played by Berenice Merlot, the Bond girl in Skyfall, on a New York City street as they both smoke cigarettes. And Brian speaks French, which helps. Brian and Ariel are attracted to each other. And in spite of Brian being very confused and uncomfortable with this whole 5 to 7 business, They enter into a romantic and sexual relationship. Brian makes Ariel so happy that her husband Valerie, Lambert Wilson, notices, tracks down Brian, and invites him to dinner. At this dinner, Brian meets Valerie and Ariel's high-profile New York friends, their two perfect children, and Valerie's mistress, Jane, Olivia Thirlby. The crazy thing is, they all get along great until one of them decides they want more than just a 5 to 7 romance. 5 to 7 is completely adorable. Every one of the characters, really every single one, come across as so genuine, kind, sophisticated, interesting, fun, and funny that I would want to be friends and hang out with any of them, preferably all of them, as friends. However, on some level, this is kind of a fantasy film. Even though the movie has its awkward and tense moments, real life is never as simple or smooth as this movie portrays it. But it was exceedingly pleasant to sit there for an hour and a half and pretend it could be. This is a smile from ear to ear romantic dramedy with its share of laugh-out-loud moments. But as adorable and humorous as the movie is, it's also touching, romantic, and even thought-provoking. Embedded in the plot and the dialogue is a subtle but powerful message for tolerance and against judging the culture of others based on the standards of your own. However, I should point out that as much as I love this movie, even with its unusual premise, I also love The Godfather and still haven't joined the Mafia. Just saying. But seriously, 5 to 7 is no 6-7 proposition. This is a wonderful movie that can be thoroughly enjoyed by anyone who's willing and able to watch it in the spirit in which it is intended. You've been watching This Weekend at the Movies. Click on the logo that appears on your screen so you don't miss any of my honest, spoiler-free, quick turnaround reviews of the newest movies in theaters in time to help you decide whether to see them opening week. You'll also get my retro reel reviews of terrific movies from years past with some connection to that weekend's new movies. And from time to time, I'll post some other movie-related videos just for fun. Please let me know in the comments what you thought about this video. I love interacting with my fellow movie fans. My name is Dave McLean, actor, voiceover artist, and movie reviewer. Thank you very much for allowing me to share my love of movies with you. You're welcome!